This episode is sponsored by Vorbos. Check them out in the description below. So you founded Absolute Collagen with your mum, which is obviously quite an original story because that doesn't happen very often. So why don't you take us sort of for a few minutes back to the very, very beginning. How did that even come about?
Yeah, of course. So I went off to uni to do food science. I actually applied to do psychology and then randomly changed last minute, which is kind of like a weird curveball in the story. My sister turned 17 so she could learn to drive. And my mum woke up one day and kind of sat at the end of the bed and was like, I haven't got any kids. Like, what do I do? Like, I have this life. Like, I can do anything with it. She hadn't got to be like the mum, the best friend. Like, she realized she could be kind of whoever she wanted to be. So she always had this affinity with art, fine art. She's like, I'm going to do an art degree. So she embarked on that. We both did a year of uni with nothing, kind of no synergies really. Luckily it wasn't the same uni because that wouldn't have, she would have a better social life than me, I think.
Right.
Probably.
Wow.
Yeah, she was quite wild, but she was always that person that sort of walked in the room. She was like the entertainer, but that wasn't kind of like who she truly was, if that made sense. But in doing this art degree, she did one, she could kind of choose what she wanted to do. Like, art students are wacky and eccentric. I think we can all
Very true.
agree on that one.
Very true.
But she did this project and she called it Dare to Go Bare. And she turned up at my bedroom door one day with a big tattoo here, a nose piercing, and I've got quite long, like, curly hair. She did too. She chopped it all off and stripped the colour out. When you strip the colour out of something, it goes yellow, ginger, orange, and had this like wacky hair. And I was like, oh my God, you've lost it. Like, she bought a motorbike 2 years before, like a Ducati, like 900.
Your mum sounds like just an absolute legend.
Oh, yeah,
like, so far, I mean, you touched on your relationship with your mum, but I think that's a really interesting thing to circle back to because I think a lot of people will have impressions about what it could be like working with family or working with friends. And that smile, I think, is quite telling. So do you think there is anything maybe that you would have done differently in terms of working with your mum? And what if someone was to ask you, I'm thinking of going into business with maybe a family member, what do you think?
If looking back, I would give my mum more of a break. I could be quite ruthless.
Right.
Yeah. But we are very direct and straight with each other. And that kind of scares people sometimes. So yeah, my boyfriend works at AC. So we've been together since before Absolute Collagen. Yeah. He was an accountant, and every evening I'd be like, numbers. I'm dyslexic, mum's dyslexic, don't give us anything to do with.
Right.
Yeah, maths. And then, so he came on board. My little sister does all our organic social media.
Okay.
I think, and it might sound really bad, my dad and my mum split up when I was 12. I think if my mum had a partner, it wouldn't have worked. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In what way?
Like another man, like a man in the house. We were working from home. She was taking big risks. We were taking big risks as a family. I think if there was another person in that situation, that she could have.
They could have been like, are you sure this is a good idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
someone to dissuade her almost.
Yeah. And I think our relationship's awesome. Like, we have. My mum's like very creative and wacky. She always says, like, we are but three. This is like her thing. And it's like, whichever one of us needs to step forward at the time, being me, my sister, or her, like, we'll do, and we'll kind of like lead on that. But yeah, I think, you know, she was with my dad for 15 years. AC wouldn't be where it is if she didn't, one, stop drinking. So she's not drank for like 10 years now. Or two, like, split up with my dad because she wouldn't have realised her own kind of confidence, worth issues. So it's all happened. That's the thing with business, isn't it? Like, everyone's like, oh, how did you do it? Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, right product, right time. Like, there's a lot of luck involved. Like, there is. Like, you can work as hard as you want, but there's certain moments that can be like the pinnacle of the turning point of you doing something. Yeah. And I'm sure if we made a load of those decisions differently, we wouldn't have been in the same position.
Sure.
And a lot of that is down to luck, I guess.
You mentioned earlier about a connection you had at Google, which I think is a really nice segue into the fact that you were part of Google's Female Founders Program, which is huge. So can you sort of take me through that and how you got into it and how it came about?
You sent the application. I don't even know how you found out about the program. So
I don't remember the application. All I remember is Hainan saying, we have an interview, let's jump on Lime bikes. I was like, I don't bike across London.
Right.
And we were like zooming through these bikes to get to the interview. And I was like, today's the day you decided that we do something new. And we got to this interview. I think the way we found out, I was a part of the Google campus community and a lot of stuff has changed there. First, they had a physical office. And at some point, they just like launched the very first ever cohort application. And we were still at Barclays. However, for us, as we were leaving, we were like, let's de-risk by applying to as much as possible. And it was equity free. So we were like, awesome. That
huge.
speaks to us. Like,
Just for anyone
let's-
listening, can you explain what the Google Campus community is?
Yes. So it is just a community where, so Google is a huge corporation and they just want to support startups. Ultimately, they see benefits. It's like great PR for them. And they've created a really cool ecosystem. So there's a Slack group. I don't fully know now. It's still a Slack group, I believe. But first, it was actually a physical location. But now they've shut down that building. However, they still have different female cohorts happening across London, Israel, Berlin. So I think if you go on the website, you'll find information. And it's always worth joining because everything's free and you meet all these people. And that was like literally our beginning. So we saw this application. But I guess what I'll say to this is there's actually a lot of accelerators now. And obviously Google was a great one, equity free. But it's like the point for us at the beginning was let's just apply. And if we get in, it'll just like expedite our learning process rather than us very slowly go at it.
Looking back at it, what do you think you got out of the accelerator program?
Great network and guidance, I think, as first-time founders. It was just amazing to have not just office space, which they provided at the time, but 9 other companies in similar stages who are going through the same thing, like product development, first website, first hire, testing marketing channels, having a weekly founder stand-up that was moderated by Marta Krupinska, who was the head of Google for Startups at the time, was incredible because she just asked all the relevant questions. What did you struggle with last week, or what can anyone like help you with? And then there's this open forum. I don't know how we would have done without that.
Yeah, I fully agree. And the other bit of network was because we were getting connected to people, for example, on the tech side, someone who's like working in cloud solutions architect at Google, great. Like stuff you'll say in one conversation is what will take months to figure out. The person Heinen said, he literally changed the look of our website. There was someone who recommended someone who just for 2 days redid the entire UI, which meant we went from this like yellow page with cartoons on it, which is so bizarre, to like a proper, clean, real photos, real people. And first to me was very jarring. I was like, why did we remove the cartoons?
Right.
But that just goes to show that it's just like we were in such a little bubble. As traders and like on like a finance floor switching that we're like, what's going on? So these guys really just like, I think we became something from nothing.
I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day. She's a female entrepreneur and she's also got a podcast, Female Founders Weekly, where she basically interviews female founders of startups. And she's really interested in the idea of kind of women in business and the impact that has. What was it like for you? Was there any did you notice any difference being a woman CEO or a woman entrepreneur in business, or was it more of a case of the product speaks for itself and the business is the business?
Yeah, I didn't notice loads of difference. I mean, there's lots of our whole team has always been sort of 50-50 in kind of gender diversity. I think one thing on the positive side is actually I think you get a lot of opportunities kind of being a female entrepreneur or women in business. You know, I guess if you're a minority in general, you'll often get like kind of opportunities to I guess speak at events or go to things, do things. So I always thought that was great, and I was quite lucky early on to go into a few kind of founder networks that have been sort of instrumental in learning from and meeting other people, and so have been quite lucky to meet other female entrepreneurs as well, and women in business. And I think there's lots of controversial like topics and debates around it, but ultimately I guess the balance of both like men and women working together on quite an equal level, I've always seen like huge benefits in any times in my kind of career and in Venue Scanner and being able to do that. So
and was that 50-50 gender diversity at Venue Scanner, was that a conscious choice, or did it kind of just come out that way?
Not really, it's just happened kind of quite organically, and say it's our leadership team, the same as 50-50, and it's just kind of I guess sort of maybe having sort of a male and female co-founder has sort of meant that it evolved in the early times like that.
I actually wanted to do wedding dresses. I had done them and hated it. It was, do you know what was really sad about the wedding industry is that everyone wants to be taller, blonder, thinner. And when you're making wedding dresses, that's what every bride wants, because we're so conditioned to think that that's the beauty standard. That's what you need to get married. And do you know what? It made me really unhappy. I had this beautiful bride who, she was like this Spanish girl. She was absolutely amazing. She had a 24-inch waist, which is the size of most people's thigh. And she said, oh, I look really fat. Can you make it so I can't breathe? I don't care if I pass out. And I just had this moment, and I was like, this is not for me. I love the wedding industry, but I don't want to be part of trying to make women look thinner than they need to be. Like, you don't have to be thinner to get married. And, you know, it was something that I was like, this is not for me. And I thought that I wanted to do that. That's what I thought when I was younger. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So it was quite difficult, because in many respects I was a bit lost, because suddenly it was like this thing that I loved. I was like, oh, it's not, you know how sometimes that expectation versus reality, I was like, this is not what I thought it would be. And then I found that veils had the beauty of the wedding industry without the size dependency. And, you know, I just think that there is, when you get engaged, like when I got engaged, my advertising on social media changed. So instantly I got how to drop 3 dress sizes in a week. I got shedding for the wedding was the top hashtag that would come up on my feed. Fat dissolving injections. And I said to my husband, like, what advertising are you getting? And he was like, football. I was like, exactly. Exactly. I was like, well, you were engaged. And I just thought, you know, we're in an industry where there are amazing suppliers doing venues, photography, creative things. Why am I getting advertising to say that I need to change myself to get married? Like, why can't we value women enough that you don't need to change yourself to get married? And, you know, I think the wedding industry in particular, if you look at the big designers, they're all using 6-foot blonde white women, and who are about this big. And that doesn't represent most women.
What I wanted to also touch on was some of the challenges that you've faced
Sure.
getting to kind of where you are today. What's been some of the hardest moments of the business?
Do you mean I just got my first investment, hired a team, and I was given 7 days notice to leave the country because my
Something like
visa
that
was
would probably spring to
rejected?
mind.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that could probably be something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you deal with that?
That was true.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, I was given 7 days notice to leave the country
Yeah.
when my visa renewal was rejected.
Okay.
And if I didn't leave within 7 days,
You'd get deported, would you? At
you
that
either
point?
get deported or if you basically have no identity in the country.
Wow. Okay. How did you navigate that?
Yeah. That's
I-
Because I can't imagine our system is geared towards people getting that done in 7 days. So
yeah.
how did you sort that?
I left.
Ah. Oh, that's one option.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually just left. Yeah. Okay.
So it was really stressful.
I can imagine.
I have to dismiss the whole team right away after I hired them.
Oh,
With a
wow.
big promise
Okay.
of how we're gonna grow the business.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
I was kicked out of my flat because I don't have a valid
Yeah.
visa to legally continue the rent. I put everything I have into a storage, hoping that I will be able to find another visa to come back.
Yeah.
I also have to sit down with all the investor I just raised money from to expand the situation and not trying to make it sound better, but being very realistic
And Frank.
and frank to expand the situation and where I see the risk, where I see the opportunity.
I'm with you. So what point was this then? You say you just raised investment.
2018, literally,
Wow, okay. All that hard work.
Yeah,
Up until 2018. Okay.
yeah.
And just taken away from you.
Yeah, so I was talking about, we got a Kickstarter campaign done in 2017 August.
Yeah.
I was supposed to launch the brand in Q1 August.
Yeah.
I got rejection letter in, I think, May or June. I think June, around that time. So I hired the team prepping for the launch.
Of course. Yeah.
Everything got delayed for sure.
Yeah.
But then the hardest decision is I can't keep you.
Yeah, of course.
Because
That
I
must-
don't
yeah,
know
it
if
must
I
have
can
been
come
hard.
back
Yeah,
or
yeah.
not.
And so what happened after that then?
I left in a rush, which you can imagine, and I went back to China where my parents live now, and tried to figure out a new type of visa to come back to UK, and emailed every single investor, advisor, friends to see how can you help me to come back.
Right.
And thankfully, Tech Nation has this visa called Exceptional Talents Visa. It's part of like a UK immigration system. They have the quota at that time is 200 per year. They can write a reference letter to UK immigration department to recommend people.
Fine.
But you have to fit really tough
I bet.
criteria.
Yeah.
And thanks for that, Sting.
Yeah.
I managed to get a new visa to come back.
And so how did you pick the business up from nothing then when you came back?
Oh, wow. I was actually living in my office for a while. I have never told anyone yet. But around that time, like, it was just so tough. I could not even rent a place because I had this blank period time on my visa. I just don't have a credit history to do that because I'm not paying myself. If you rent somewhere, you need to do the reference check.
Of course,
you need
I'm with you.
You need a pay slip. I didn't have that. It's really about, I guess, it's a belief in the business, and also I feel so strongly to fulfill my promise. Like, people believed in me, whether it's the early stage backers to our investors, to the friends and whoever helped me to come back to the country. I just want to prove that I'm worth your belief. I can do this.
What would you say were the kind of main takeaways going through that period, or the key learning points? Because going through something like that must be incredibly stressful and just exhausting emotionally. But understandably, if you're going through something like that, right? I mean, what did you take away from that period?
I honestly think when I look back, I think everyone will have adversity to face. Everyone will have a challenging time, but you never know how strong you are until you overcome the situation. And that is something that I feel incredibly grateful for. Like, it was a really tough situation. I cried, I stressed, went through a lot of emotional feeling, but looking back, sitting where I am now, I'm really proud that I overcome that adversity rather than let them run over me.
It's extremely impressive. A really impressive story. I was just sort of in silence while you talk. I mean, that's
it is. I
mean, we've had people that have had all sorts of kind of hurdles in their business, but I mean, to literally be deported after you've just raised
in the run up to launch,
after just raising funding and hiring a team.
I know.
I mean, that I can't even imagine how you cope with that.
No,
like, my hat goes off to you. Seriously, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow, I've forgotten my next question. That's
I know.
Completely
yeah. But I mean, not to kind of like probe into that too much, but what do you think allowed you to keep going when obviously a lot of people in that position wouldn't be able to take it? Was it just that determination not to let down your investors and actually prove a point to either yourself or to them, or was there some sort of something else kind of driving you at that point?
I just don't think I was ready to give up.
Yeah.
I think it's so hard to get to where I was at that point. I put so much effort to get back to the country.
Yeah.
This is not the point where I should say no. Like, it's not really about proving to the investor. I think it's about proving to myself.
Yeah.
When did you know, or sort of decide, or how did you make the decision rather to start taking money out of the business? I think that's a question a lot of founders have. Like, when do you start paying yourself, and why, and how do you gauge how much as well?
Yeah, so I started properly. Well, I stopped taking like a minimum salary just so that I can get a lease when I come back.
Yeah.
That's really practical speaking. I start to take the proper salary, still below the market rates, but enough for me to carry my cover my day-to-day expense. I think after we start to do probably 5 figures, like a monthly revenue, and then as we grow bigger and bigger, then I gradually increased my salary. But I think it's what I learned. So for probably 2.5 years, I feel really guilty to take salary out of the business because I feel like that is taking away the opportunity for me to grow the business.
It's a balance.
But I hit one point, like when I couldn't find a lease, when I couldn't really like cover the basic of my life while I'm working on this passion, it stressed me so much, actually become a distraction from running the business. And that is learning I had is when I have to be in a position that I don't need to worry the basic to be able to take bolder decisions with the business.
I used to go to ladies, houses. I used to do families as well. So did a lot of physio. So yes, I used to go to people's houses like a mobile therapist.
Yeah,
Sure. And so how did you make that for £5 an hour? How did you make that work? Because the travel time and then the money on travel and all that kind of stuff.
Back then it was different. Back then people used to earn 50-60 pounds a day.
Yeah.
So if I did 6-7 massages a day, which is a long day. I used to leave home 7. I would not come back till 11.
Wow.
So yes, that obviously later you try to combine in the same area and things like this. But I used to do like 8-9 massages a day, and some people give me a little tip, or they feed me, or like somebody knows, or did you have lunch? And give me. So it's a really like, even the people see the passion and so how you good to them. They want to help. So they helped me with the language. I didn't even have massage bed. So we used to literally do it on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Okay, right. Okay, you literally let nothing get in your way.
Like,
Okay, right.
I guess for £5 you get what you pay
Yeah, of
for in
course.
a way.
You know what the product is.
The help, the fact that it's so cheaply priced is good, because it's like they're like, you don't have a massage bed. You're like, it's £5.
Yeah.
Take the massage.
Yeah,
Take
true.
it now.
Yeah.
And so how did you go from scaling up? How did you? Because that's the thing a lot of people have a sort of problem with, or they encounter as a struggle, is like changing pricing. It's like, I'm charging £20 an hour, but how do I go from 20 and start charging more? It's awkward. A client's going to leave me. How do I have that conversation? How did you transition from?
Yes,
from that?
that's definitely a big factor, and it's a fear at first as well. So at some point you get so fully booked, right, that you just can't take any more clients, and you're realizing, okay, and also it's tiring because it's a very physical.
Sure.
So there is only so many hours a day you can do. So you just tell them, and you just accept that you're more likely to lose 30%, which is fine, because if you increase your prices, let's say by 20% or 30%, you're getting the same thing. So I think that 30% loss every time I increase, but it was just like new people came in, and new, it just was building up. So I would not, yes, I would advise not to be feared of charging appropriate prices for the work if you have no space.
We were studying at university. I was just downing coffee, energy drinks to try to stay awake in the library for like 12 hours. Really unsustainable, very unhealthy. I have ADHD and anxiety, and
Likewise.
Oh,
Likewise too, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Both?
Both.
Do you have ADHD?
Yeah.
Do you actually?
I actually do.
Wow. Learn something new every day. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's super common, and so and that's one of the reasons why I think the product has resonated with so many people. But I'll get back into the story. So basically, I couldn't function. I was so anxious because I was getting the jitters from the caffeine. I was experiencing crashes, which made me feel super down, and I couldn't focus. And I just knew there needed to be a better way. And a friend recommended that I try matcha. I didn't realize that it was caffeinated. And it also had all these other health benefits beyond providing a different type of caffeine, which is longer lasting, anxiety free, reduces anxiety, actually. So I tried it. changed my life. Recommended it to Teddy and Levi, who were both playing football at the time, and believe it helped with your athletic performance and academic performance. And then we moved to the UK, and we realized that there were very few quality matcha options on the market. And there were no drinks that were canning it.
Yeah.
So we kind of took a look around the natural energy space. And again, we were pretty underwhelmed by the options. None of them were providing the kind of energy that I could tolerate. And none of the brands resonated with me, especially as a woman, because they were all super hyper masculine. And we just felt there needed to be a better way.
I don't think I fitted the idea of what a founder should be.
What did they think the idea of a founder should be?
Well, I risk getting a bit sexist here, but I think they expected me to be male, and there is actually there is research that shows that the conversations that an investor will ask a man is very different to the questions that they'll ask a woman. So they'll ask a male about vision, growth, the future. They will ask a female about the problems, and so naturally, the female is talking about all the problems, and the male is talking about
where it's going to go,
the space, Elon Musk type thing.
Yeah.
And there's research that shows that, and I think coming across pieces of research like that makes me feel a little bit more like it wasn't all just in my head, and that it is actually a thing. I think we have a lot of, this is not just investors versus founders. This is, as a society, we have a lot of biases that we maybe will overcome at some point, but I don't think we will in my lifetime.
That was going to be my next question. Are you an optimist or a pessimist on that?
I'm an optimistic pessimist.
So yes, but just on a longer time horizon kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can you give any specific advice to females who are looking to raise money at the moment?
Know your numbers, which is advice I would give any founder. Be confident, and just know your business inside out. But also, I think women can be a little bit more shy or at unease with the accomplishments. So realize what you've done and how incredible what you've built is. Because if you don't realize that, no one else is going to realize it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is quite important. I think men, can have quite big egos compared to women. And then if a woman is confident, they're deemed to be too confident. So it's difficult to get to find the right level of confidence.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting topic of conversation. I'm actually curious to get your opinion, because it is quite a big topic of discussion at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware. The idea of, people are looking to make more of a conscious effort to hire women in certain positions and certain roles and industries and things like that. And obviously, when you consume mainstream media, you see two sides of the coin. You see one side of people going, we need to make more of an effort to include women in these spaces because they have historically been left out of them. And then you hear the other side of the coin of people saying, well, I'm not getting these advantages as a man when I'm going into the room. I've just worked hard, got the grades, got the degree, and I'm turning up to an interview. Why are they getting a handicap? And there's sort of two arguments that are always made. I'm curious to know what you think about that whole side of it.
Yeah, I think that people should be given a little bit more, not hand holding because that's kind of demeaning, but a little bit more support if they are a minority that doesn't fit within the current kind of status quo. I think they should be given more support. I find the kind of women only events and spaces quite difficult. I've always kind of worked in a male dominated industry, and I also just feel that sometimes having those kind of female only spaces don't help, because you have to deal with men in kind of everyday life. So you can't just surround yourself by women. I think you have to have a good mix, and it can be it can be difficult if you're only having conversations with women about anything, and then you kind of have to go off and speak to a man. They'll expect you to kind of act in a different way. You've kind of got to work out how you work together as opposed to each in silo.